Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachariya Yamuna Tira Vanachariya Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Sri Radha Madhava ki Sri Radha Giridhari ki Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Gaja Jashodhara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace of Viśvarūpa Aravind Bhaktivedanta Swami Surpass ki Jai Jayo Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivraj Gaja Jashodhara Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Saranta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Pupari ki Jai Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinde ki Jai Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai Samvira Bhakti ki Jai Go Premanandi all glories to the assembled devotees all glories assembled devotees all glories assembled devotees all glories Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga 10. That's why it's there. Okay. So this morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th Canto, 13th chapter, King Indra afflicted by sinful reaction. Text number 10. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Sanchodita Viprayar Murutvam Ahanat Ripum Brahmahatya Hate Tasmin Asada Vrishakapim. Do you know exactly what that means? Vrishakapi. Remember the devotee Vrishakapi? He ran the DC temple when it was on Q. Remember Vrishakapi? He remember. That's the name for Indra. Vrishakapi. Okay. Srishuko Vacha. Evam Sanchodito Viprar. Marutvam Ananad Rupum. Brahmahatya Hate Tasmin. Asada Vrikshakapim. Sri Sugovacha. Evam Sanchodito Viprar. Marutvam Ananad Ripum. Brahmahatya Hate Tasmin. Asada Vrishakapim. Anyone like to chant? Shisuko Vacha. Shri Shugovacha. Evam Sanchodito Viprar. Brahmaṇa Brahmahatya Hate Tasmin. Asasada Vrishakapim. Would you like to chant? Shri Shugovacha. Evam Sanchodito Viprar. Marutvam Ahanadurupum. Brahmahatya Hate Tasmin. Asasada Vrishakapim. Sri Sukovacha. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, Evam, thus, Sanchoditaha, being encouraged, Viprar, by the Brahmins, Murutvam, Indra, Ahanat, killed, Ripum, his enemy, Vṛtrāsura. Brahmahatya, the sinful reaction for killing a Brāhmana. Hate was killed. Tasmin, when he, Vṛtrāsura, Asada, approached Vrishakapim, Indra, who is also named Vrishakapi. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, encouraged by the words of the sages, Indra killed Vṛtrāsura, and when he was killed, the sinful reaction for killing a Brahmana, Brahmahatya, certainly took shelter of Indra. Purport. After killing Vṛtrāsura, Indra could not surpass the Brahmahatya, the sinful reaction for killing a Brahmana. Formerly, he had killed one Brahmana, Viśvarūpa, out of circumstantial anger. But this time, following the advice of the sages, he killed another Brahmana purposefully. Therefore, the sinful reaction was greater than before. Indra could not be relieved from the reaction simply by performing sacrifices for atonement. He had to undergo a severe series of sinful reactions, and when he was freed by such suffering, the Brāhmaṇas allowed him to perform the horse sacrifice. The planned execution of sinful deeds on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord or undergoing prayaschitta, atonement, cannot give relief to anyone, even to Indra or Nahusha. Nahusha was officiating for Indra, while Indra, absent from heaven, was going here and there to gain release from his sinful reactions. Om Agyanti Mirandasya Garanjana Salakaya Chakshur Unminitam Netaismai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapidam Dena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svahabadandikam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakapatarubhascha kripa sindhu bhavacha patitanam bhavani bhu vaishnavi bhu namo namaha. So by your good wishes, ardent prayers, severe austerities and sacrifices bestowed upon me, I'll try to say a few words of encouragement. First being, can you open that door just a little bit? And I encourage us all to stay awake. Okay. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, encouraged by the words of the sages, Indra killed Vṛtrāsura, and when he was killed, the sinful reaction for killing a Brahmana, Brahmahatya, certainly took shelter of Indra. So there's a few points I'd like to cover today on this. One has to do with how messy karma can be. It's kind of messy and complicated. And the other is about how dear Brahmanas are to the Lord, and let alone killing them, even any kind of offense against the Brahmins are taken very serious by the Lord. And of course, well, who is a real Brahmin anyways? So this karma sometimes is not so all the time, actually. It's rarely is it very cut and dry, even though sometimes we like to be able to explain it that way. Oh, you did this, and that's why you're suffering, or something like that. Who knows? In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 3rd chapter, Krishna is saying to Arjuna that, it's very, very complicated, karma, to try to understand it. Even great sages can't understand how complicated karma is. Because you're taking into factors many, many, many lifetimes and so many different situations, and then someone's got to, just like in a court of law, sometimes there are very complicated court cases, and the judge has got to figure out exactly how to apply the law in this particular situation, what actually should be the sentence. Just like murder, here's Brahmahatya, killing a Brahmin. So killing in a court of law, what do they call it? Murder, right? There's murder. But there's different kinds of murder, right? There's murder 1, right? There's murder 2, murder 3, premeditated murder. Then there's murder when you were lost it, You get angry, you know what you were doing, right? Sometimes people can plead that they were temporarily insane and they didn't know what they were doing. And they asked the judge, so the judge has got to try to figure all this stuff out. Was that really a person crazy? Prabhupada tells a story that there was a famous court case when he was there in India in his younger days. And the man pleaded insanity. I think his wife or something, killed his wife, right?
No, he killed the person who had sex with him.
Oh, that was that court case. Oh, okay. So this is the court case. This is pretty amazing. There was a servant in the house. Must have been a handsome chap. And this was a surgeon. And they were having a relationship, an affair. And the surgeon found out about it. So what he did was he called the servant to his area for treating patients and so on, and took some chloroform, and knocked him out and cut up his body and put it in a box. And when he was leaving his office to put it in the back seat of his car to dump it somewhere, some blood was dripping out of that box, and a police officer saw it. That doesn't look right. You're carrying a box down the street and there's blood dripping out of it as you're going down the street. So he got caught. So anyways, it went to court, right? Went to court, and he pleaded. He pleaded insanity. He just didn't know what he was doing, right? So what's a judge supposed to do? So it gets very, very complicated how to give everyone exactly what they deserve. Fortunately, the Supreme Judge is Krishna, and he knows everything past, present, and future. Vedaham samatitani vartamani chajarjuna, right? Krishna knows all things past, present, and future. He knows all living entities. Mam tu veda na kashtana, but no one knows Krishna. So, but... Oh, okay. That's the point I made. I got lost my train of thought. Thank you for bringing me back. And the judge called a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist said, and they have these what they call it, professional witnesses, expert witnesses. So he said, Your Honor, as far as I have seen, everyone's crazy in this material world. Everyone's crazy. To greater or lesser degrees. Everyone's crazy. So to say I was temporarily insane, I don't know if it's such a good defense. But, so that's the point. The judge has to deal with all of these things. And was he crazy? Was he not crazy? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So in this particular situation, we can see it starts getting very complicated. You have Lord Indra. His spiritual master Brihaspati comes and he offends him by not paying him proper attention. And Brihaspati leaves. And then on the other side, you got the demons attacking the heavenly planets, and they're very, very strong. And Indra, what am I supposed to do? And they recommended he hire or take on Viśvarūpa to perform all these sacrifices so he become very, very strong and kill the demons. And then he finds out Viśvarūpa on the side is giving remnants of oblations and so on to the demons. And he gets really upset, and it says here, circumstantial anger. He killed him. He killed a Brahmin. Okay, now because he killed him, guess whose father got really upset? Viśvarūpa's father, right? And he goes to create a demon to kill Indra, and he goofs up on the mantras, and he creates a demon that Indra will kill. Well, guess who that demon was in the previous life? Tritaketu was a great devotee. So it gets the whole story gets the plot, it gets really thick. And now, what's he supposed to do? You got this demon who's very powerful, and he's attacking the heavenly planets. Indra's supposed to say, I know you're a devotee, and you can do whatever you want. He's got to defend the heavenly planets. And he's got the Brahmins here telling him, his advisors, you got to kill him. He's disturbing everything. So on the advice of these Brahmins, then they go to Dadichi. And Dadichi's got to give up his body and give him the bones. That's a whole scene. And then he makes these thunderbolt. And then there's the battle. And then sure enough, on this advice of the Brahmins to kill him, he kills him. And then he's got these sinful reactions. So he's really, really caught up in this very, very complicated web of karma. And it's not just Indra, actually every living entity gets caught up. The longer you stick around in the material world, it's just kind of like sometimes people, they go to pujas and so on, you tell them to take off your socks. You know why you take off your socks when you sit down to do puja? They stink. Well, it depends on how long you've been in your socks. That's true. Hopefully we don't have any Brahmins in the temple with stinky socks. You know why? Well, yeah, in the sense that when you walk around with socks, even clean socks, you pick up all these things on the bottom of your socks. So you don't want to bring them to the puja. That's why you take off your socks, because you got all these things. So just being in this material world, we pick up all of this karma, just going through the material world every single day. Because, is it true or not, that every single action has a reaction? Every single thing we do, there's a reaction. This is the world of karma. Everything is action and reaction, action and reaction. And when that reaction comes, who can say? It's up to Krishna. It's up to Krishna. So the point is that it's a very messy place, the material world, and we have karma coming from so many lifetimes. And it can get very difficult to accept sometimes karma, just like when they talk about a situation like a little child, right? A little child gets a terminal illness or something like that, or dies prematurely. And the parents are wondering, why this happened to me? Just a little child, innocent child. But is that really an innocent child? It's a spirit soul, and it's so many lifetimes. And, one positive thing in a situation like that, Prabhupada said, it just means that soul had just a little bit of karma left. It just had to finish it off and then go up like that. But it gets very, very complicated to try to explain all this. But suffice to say that Krishna, fortunately, is giving everyone exactly what they deserve. That's the point here. Indra has to go through this, and there's no other way. At the end of the purport, Prabhupada saying that this kind of a sinful reaction is premeditated, killing of a Brahmin or whatever it might be. You can't atone for that by chanting the holy names or prayashrita or anything like that. You can't. Because that calculation itself is another sinful reaction. So it gets very, very sticky and complicated. And this Nahusha, I think we're going to be reading about him soon. I think it's right in here. Nahusha, when Indra had to go and hide out in a lotus flower for a while, because it's got another verse or two, she's showing up. Sinful reaction personified. Do you ever wonder what sinful reaction personified might look like? Is there a picture? There's a picture in the old book when she's coming like that. She looks like sinful reaction personified, like that. She couldn't make it on the front of Cosmopolitan magazine, I'll tell you right now. So she looks pretty nasty and old, and she's vomiting. She has emphysema or tuberculosis or something like that. So he runs and he hides. So he can't take care of things. So while he's gone, Nahusha takes over, and Nahusha gets in trouble. A lot of trouble going on up there. It just seems the more opulence you have, the more trouble you get into. You know what he started doing? Should I tell you, or you want to wait till you get to the verses?
Yeah, tell us.
Okay. Just when you're on the edge of your seat, so I'll tell you. He started making the moves on Indra's wife. So Indra, here's his trusted assistant, Nahusha. He says, Nahusha, can you just take over for me? Well, I got to go deal with all these sinful reactions. He says, oh yeah, no problem. And while he's gone, he's making the moves on his wife. So he gets cursed to become a snake. So he's got to deal with all of that. His karma deals as a snake. And he's got to, so it's very, very complicated and difficult, this material world. So one has to be, get a lesson there, one has to be very, very careful. So 8:16. As far as karma here and brāhmaṇas, I just wanted to read, let me just have time for this, but one thing is Indra's a very, very powerful personality, and he cannot escape karma, right? He can't escape karma, so it doesn't matter how powerful a person is, one cannot escape karma. Even devotees can't escape karma. There are reactions for everything we do. I'm going to read this, but I was going to refer to, there's different devotees in Chaitanya Leela and so on who are exemplify this point that one has to be very, very careful. I don't know of anyone killing a Brahmin in Chaitanya Leela, but there are those who offended devotees of the Lord, and they suffered terribly. Gopal Chapal is an example of that. He was envious Srivas Thakur, and he put out the articles for worshiping Kali on his doorstep and all, just that one action itself was taken as such a great offense by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was cursed to suffer leprosy. You don't see many lepers around, do you? You even hear about them. But it's such a ghastly, horrible disease. What happens when you have leprosy? Huh? Your nose falls off. Parts of your tips of your finger. It just rots the flesh and so on. I talk about a horrible, horrible disease. And even the first time he met Lord Chaitanya said, "No, I'm not going to forgive you." And the second time he told me, "Go take shelter of Srivas Thakur." And he did, and he was relieved of that sin, but he suffered horribly like that. And I was going to bring up the story of Ramachandra Puri. He offended his spiritual master, thought himself more intelligent than his spiritual master, and was instructing his spiritual master, who was leaving his body, not to lament, because he was lamenting that very famous verse. He said, no, you should meditate on Brahman. He said, "I'll get out of here. So I see your face when I'm leaving my body. I don't know where I'm going." But due to that offense, he became a great offender to the devotees and an impersonalist and so on. He lost his Krishna consciousness. And that's the greatest of all punishments and maladies, is one loses their whatever Krishna, it becomes covered. That's what losing means. It becomes covered for who knows how long. It's one thing if you lose some money, you lose this or that, but when you lose your ability to practice Krishna consciousness, you just don't have any more ruchi. The ruchi is gone. Imagine you woke up tomorrow morning and you said, "What am I doing here? I don't like being here. I don't like prasadam. I don't like chanting. I don't like the haircut. I don't like these clothes. I don't know, why am I here? Who am I?" And it was all gone. That can happen. It has happened, it is happening, and it will happen. So you have to be very, very careful. So there's a wonderful section here of the Bhagavatam. They're all wonderful sections, but specific to today's verse, about how, because Brahmahatya is one of the greatest of all sins, even killing anyone. Does anyone here have to kill someone? Did you have to kill anyone in Russia? Okay, I figured. Russians. Probably right out of the crib, Those are tough people there. But I've never had to kill anyone. But you hear about people who had to kill people. It's not an easy thing, Any sane person, it's not an easy thing. It's not. He didn't want to. He was a Kshatriya, but he didn't want to. Yeah. So killing a Brahmin, especially, is must be very, very careful. But anyways, Lord Rishabhdev, in his instructions to his children, his sons, he's talking about how elevated Brahmins are. If you like, I can read a few of these translations. So he says, of the two energies manifest, spirit and matter, beings possessing living force are superior to dull matter. Superior to non-moving plants and vegetables are worms and snakes, which can move. Superior to worms and snakes are animals that have developed intelligence. Superior to animals are human beings, and superior to human beings are ghosts, because they have no material bodies. Superior to ghosts are the Gandharvas, and superior to them are the Siddhas. Superior to the Siddhas are the Kinnaras, and superior to them are the Asuras, because they're so powerful. Superior to the Asuras are the demigods, and of the demigods, Indra, the king of heaven, is supreme. So he gets a pretty high rating in this verse, Indra, who we're talking about. Okay, and who's above him? Superior to Indra are the direct sons of Lord Brahma, sons like King Daksha, and the supreme among Brahma's sons is Lord Shiva. Since Lord Shiva is a son of Lord Brahma, Brahma is considered superior, but Brahma is also subordinate to me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So you'd probably think the verse ends there, right? Then he says, because I am inclined to the Brahmins are the best of all. Okay, next. O respectful Brāhmaṇas, as far as I am concerned, no one is equal or superior to the Brāhmaṇas in this world. I do not find anyone comparable to them. When people know my motive after performing rituals according to the Vedic principles, they offer food to me with faith and love through the mouth of a Brāhmaṇa. When the food is thus offered unto me, I eat it with full satisfaction. Indeed, I derive more pleasure from food offered in that way than the food offered into the sacrificial fire. The Vedas are my eternal transcendental sound incarnation, therefore the Vedas are Shabda Brahma. In this world, the Brāhmaṇas thoroughly study all the Vedas, and because they assimilate the Vedic conclusions, they are also to be considered the Vedas personified. The Brahmins are situated in the supreme transcendental mode of nature, Sattva Gun. Because of this, they are fixed in, here's your list, here's your take-home homework. Because they're fixed in, because of that, they're fixed in mind-controlled, Sama, sense-controlled, Dhamma, and truthfulness, Satya. They describe the Vedas in their original sense, and out of mercy, anugraha, they preach the purpose of the Vedas to all conditioned souls. They practice penance, tapasya, and tolerance, tatiksha, and they realize the position of the living entity and the Supreme Lord, Anubhava. These are the 8 qualifications of the Brāhmaṇas. Therefore, among all living entities, no one is superior to the Brāhmaṇas. Let me see if I could end right there. Okay. So Prabhupada elaborates in the purport, but the point is to understand is that when Krishna says the Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahman Hitaya Cha Jikaritaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namah. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there are 2 living entities who are very, very dear to Krishna. Who are they? The go, cows, and the Brāhmanas. In one place, Prabhupada said, which one was more important? The cows. Get a little humble, Prabhus. Yeah, the cows. So, Brahmanya Dev, he's the Lord of the Brahmins. Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha, he's the protector of the cows and Brahmins. Very, very dear. And this is saying why they're dear. Now, nowhere in this verse it says because they got a 2-pice Brahmin thread in Loi Bazaar. Didn't say that in here, right? Those kind of Brahmins. The first shocker I had was in Jagannath Puri, the first time I went, you know. And who's been to Jagannath Puri? Been to Jagannath Puri? I don't know. Maybe you can see it all. I went to Jagannath Puri. And there's our Brahmins standing around, you know, with the... It's hot there, you know, with the dhoti and then the thing around their waist and their big Brahmin thread and the big sika, smoking beedies. I was thinking, what's going on here? What's going on here? But, you know, so what kind of Brahman are we talking about? So one has to have some qualification, and those qualifications are attractive to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they're all auspicious. All auspicious, like that. Because the devotees of the Lord, just by their very nature, are the representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this material world to show mercy to all the conditioned souls. That's why Krishna is very, very attracted to the Brahmins, like that. Very, very attracted, and considers them to be topmost personalities worthy of all respect. Of course, we could also read from the story of Sudam Brahman, like that, how dear Sudam Brahman is to Krishna. But just different things to understand how dear, and therefore, just like if, I don't know how you could actually, well, I guess some people are excused, even if there's murder. I don't know what the lowest level is, but just like if you're in a car accident and you accidentally, not on your cell phone, but you imagine you accidentally for 1 second just turned around and bam, hit someone and killed them, right? You didn't mean to, you weren't inebriated or this or that, but just out of, you could say, circumstance, it happened. So that sentence will not be as grave as someone who has a premeditated murder out of for whatever the reason may be. But killing is there, and also killing, the example, just like a Kshatriya, he has to be violent. On one hand, Indra had to do his duty, right? On one hand, was he wrong? There's a demon, a huge demon, very powerful demon, destroying the demigods, the army of the demigods, and capable of taking over the heavenly planets. So was he right in defending the heavenly planets? If you're out, let's say, how many people on a jury? I keep getting out of jury duty, so I never know. 12, okay? I got out that time. I just remembered that. I got out. I have to go back, though, in a few months. But, so 12, so there's like 12 devotees here. So I ask you, is it okay? Was Indra innocent? On one hand, he was defending the heavenly planet. He was a Kshatriya. He's supposed to defend. But then there was a Brahmin he had to kill. So what's he supposed to do? Just like the whole thing with Ashvatthama, right? What's he supposed to do? Draupadi says, don't kill him. And Bhima says, wring his neck. And Krishna says, what am I, Arjun's, what am I supposed to do? And Krishna knew exactly what to do. How to apply that. Or just like Rukmi, right? Rukmini's brother. Like Krishna was going to right? Going to kill him. And he said, no. And so what did he do? Give him a haircut. Because that's considered, for a Kshatriya, it's almost worse than death. Like that, to disfigure him with a little haircut and so on like that. So, there's intricacies of karma. So, the point being, this is a situation where even though he was doing his duty, there's karma. Why was Maharaj Yudhisthira so devastated? One of the reasons he was so devastated after the battle of Kurukshetra, even though on one hand, he was fighting on religious principles, and he had the right to the kingdom. Why was he practically devastated? Yes, and he brought that up in his conversation with Bhishma, that for my behalf, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of living entities, people, the Kshatriyas and their servants and horses, and all were killed. You can imagine, you can't imagine. I don't know how you could even imagine the scene, right? The scene. Every day after the battlefield, as far as you can see, grotesque, slaughtered people like that. And not lying there quietly, Yes. You do that again. Yeah, like that. Even worse, like that. So, on his behalf, and therefore he just could not accommodate. Why me? What am I? How am I? I'm going to suffer in hell forever for this. He was thinking like that, even though Krishna wanted it. So he was thinking like that. It's such a So then this would. Things to contemplate as far as how heavy karma is, and we should be very, very careful. And as far as a takeaway also, of course, I hope no one has to worry about killing another devotee, a Brahmin, but offending in that sense, to be very, very careful not to offend devotees. Not to offend anyone. What does they call it? When, what's that? In royalty, when you favor other people and give them political positions. Nepotism, right? Nepotism, right? So it's not like that. Oh, these are just friends of Krishna, It's like for no good reason. He's just like, no, there's a very good reason. Krishna the Brahmins are dear to Krishna, and Krishna is dear to the Brahmins. Is a reason, because they actually are exalted spiritual personalities, and one should be very, very respectful. And that respectful, serving mood helps one advance very quickly in Krishna consciousness. So we've run out of time. So on that happy note, there must be some comments or questions. Yes.
Hare Krishna. So what about circumambulating Tulsi?
Right. It says you can be relieved even from the killing of a Brahmin. You can. She's so dear to the Lord. But I wouldn't go kill a Brahmin and test it. Okay?
Yes, are we to presume that Indra just didn't know that? He just walked around Tulsi, or is this...
I cannot speak for the mind of Indra, but he's in a difficult situation because he could say, wait a second, you told me go ahead and do this. You said everything would be okay, and now it's not. So, and in other words, it's the old thing about how tricky the material world is, and don't think you feel, I'll do this, and I'll do that. There's so many karma kanda things are like that, all that karma, and that's the whole story of Maharaj Nriga and the lizard and so on. One cow, just one cow, it says his piety was so great that he would never leave heaven practically. But that one cow wandered back, he didn't even know. And then he re-gifted it to another Brahmin. The two Brahmins had a big argument, and they wouldn't even. He offered them how many? Like 1,000 or 10,000 cows. He said no, and they got all upset and they walked away. And for that offense, he had to take birth as a lizard. So it's very, very complicated and difficult, and so one has to be careful. That's the takeaway on this. One has to be very, very, very careful. Even one's doing. And every endeavor is covered by fault, just like smoke is covered by a fire. So in everything we do, there's always going to be something. Always going to be something. That's why engagement in a devotional service is the safest path. There's people who try to avoid everything. Look at the Jains. They wear the mask and everything so they don't kill any living entities. They won't eat potatoes or carrots because they come out of the earth. All these different things they're trying to do. But at every moment there's something. How can you avoid? So what to do? But if you're engaged in devotional service, Krishna says, I'll cover all of that. I'll take care of all of that. And one sincerely engaged in devotional service. So it's the best path. Like that. Yes.
Question. Thank you for class. So, regarding Yudhishthira's sinful reaction he has to go through, so some people not in Krishna consciousness, they give argument that even Krishna's whole family was destroyed after battle of Kurukshetra because he incurred all the sins of Kurukshetra battle. He made it happen. So how to understand that?
I've never heard that bogus.
Yeah, people say that because the Yadus were destroyed practically before he left. Then Krishna went to Godavari, Saraswati, and he left there.
Yeah. What do the scriptures say?
I don't know. What I understand that they also offended Rishi, and Yadus got lump of fire, and they were supposed to be killed, practically killing each other. Yeah. Right. So
that's all very nicely explained there in the Bhagavatam. That Krishna is winding up his pastimes, and all of those devotees, and some were demigods, some were eternal associates. It's all time for them to go. So it's their time to go. And another explanation given is that because they were the Yadu dynasty, very, very powerful, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, etc. of Krishna, they may exploit that position. So Krishna's saying, better everyone just come. Plus my mission's done. Demigods came for a particular reason to assist them. They go back to the heavenly planet. Those members of the Yadu dynasty are eternal associates. They go back with it. And that was their one birth in the material world, trained up, they go. So everyone just goes back to where they're going to go. Some may continue on with Krishna to the next universe. It has nothing to do with sinful reactions at all. Nothing to do with that at all. In Krishna's time, it was time for him to leave. So he gave his final instructions to Uddhav and then just left. Like that. So people can say so many things, but what do the scriptures say? Make up so many different things. It's quite interesting what people can make up like that. So Prabhupada says the other day, he said there's one commentary, one Indian man who was a doctor wrote a commentary on Bhagavad Gita as if Krishna was a physician giving a medical advice to Arjuna or something. So people come up with all kinds of things. But what do the scriptures say? Prabhupada always tells you, what do the scriptures say? That's what we follow. You have a question?
Yeah.
You have a microphone?
No, I do.
Okay.
So there's people out there who are practicing demonic lifestyle, and then let's say they're to people who are more very, what they call people who follow the right path. They're called like holy people. They try to like dialogue and be literate with them, for they can start a path of like austerity and the righteous path. But like after communicating, they just continue on with their demonic lifestyle. I guess to the point where like you gotta like Krishna wants them to eliminate them, because it's gonna eventually it's gonna affect them too.
As far as eliminating sinful people, this is Kali Yuga. If you want to eliminate sinful people, it's practically everyone. So not a good policy. In the age of Kali, you try to eliminate the tendency in the heart, and that's by giving people whatever Krishna consciousness they can assimilate. For a lot of people, that's just prasadam and the holy name. That's it. They're not ready to, like you say, hear and follow. So that's the best we can do. And Kali Yuga also means one has to be very, very tolerant. It's a very, very difficult age. One has to be very, very tolerant, very, very patient, like that. And very careful in one's own execution of Krishna consciousness. Just like a doctor, he's in the hospital, he's got to make sure he's very healthy, because if you're not, what happens? You can get sick, right? You can catch something from the patients. So one has to, in their own practices, be very, very fixed up. And then Kali Yuga means very, very compassionate for the conditioned souls, giving them whatever they can. But the idea that we'll just wipe everyone out. Fortunately, someone didn't think about that before we became devotees, or we wouldn't be here. God bless the Hare Krishnas back in the 70s and 60s. None of us would have been here. They just killed us all, our parents, or something like that. So that's not right. Just to be compassionate. That's our. But if someone is very, very demoniac or materialistic, let's use that word, avoid their association, because it won't do you any good. You know that saying about teaching a pig how to sing? You know that one?
Yeah.
You try to teach a pig how to sing, what happens? One, the pig will never sing, and two, you just get frustrated. So don't bother trying to teach a pig how to sing. So in the same way, those who have absolutely no interest in Krishna consciousness for now, best to avoid them and go on to someone else.
Kind of like you can't treat an old dog new tricks.
Yeah, exactly.
And also like a Brahmin, if like a Brahmin goes into like war, like that's for like the other lower class to do that, right? It's not for a Brahmin to enter war and kill.
No, there's different classes of people, but Brahmins are usually kind of intellectual. They're not that fighting type. Like that, they don't
and
like
if they did, would they go down the class?
Well, in an
would they
emergency
stay?
situation, you can do what you got to do, okay? But that's just not your nature,
Yeah.
right? It's not your nature, so that's one thing. Certain things in life, sometimes you just have to do things because they have to be done, right? But that's not our nature. That's just that maybe there's an emergency or this or that or whatever, and you got to do some things. Yes. Okay. Any other questions?
But would he go down the class would they stay in the class of Brahmin if they were to like?
In emergency situations, one can do the path of someone else, but it's not long term. It's just because there's an emergency.
Yeah.
One has to somehow take that position because it's an emergency.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So we can end here? Yes? All glories to Srila Prabhupada.